Hello, Sherry. It's Dave. I just wanted to respond to one of your questions prior to our getting together on the podcast tomorrow for sandwich parenting. The question I thought would be easier just for me to respond back in video. This could be a little long. You might want to grab a glass of wine or a juice. I'm going to try and keep it under 10 minutes, though. Your question was here. You made a huge pivot in your career to coaching. Tell us more about your origin story. So actually, it was more than a pivot for me. To me, it was a huge life-altering shift across almost all the aspects of my life, except for one. So there was actually two big life-altering shifts. The first one I actually talked about in my book. So my book is Mondays Don't Have to Suck: How Small Changes Can Make a Huge Difference. So a bunch of really small changes over a number of years got me to a really nasty place. So I was clinically depressed. I isolated myself from everybody. I was what's called a functioning alcoholic. I was self-medicating with alcohol to be able to function. I was eating comfort food like it was crazy. I went from 190 pounds to 264, just in this really, really nasty place. And I hit rock bottom. I was around 45. So perfect timing for my midlife crisis. I like to call it midlife catalyst. So anyhow, I was able to get up and start moving forward. And that's what I talk about in this book here. It's one man's unintentional journey of life-altering self-transformation. I was just trying to get off the floor, not necessarily alter my life, but then all those little small changes started to add up as well. So that book talks about the first kind of 5 years of my journey and my transformation. There was a bunch of triggers in there, and one of them, again, was related to one of the roles and one of the areas that I'm the most proud of in my life. And spoiler alert, that is my role as a parent of my kids. So during that whole 10-year journey, they were there for me. So when I said I was self-isolated and everything else that was going on, they were the only ones who were still in my life during that period. So I'm so grateful for having them there and, having the opportunity to spend time with them. So the first part of my journey was one more around the workplace. I was not in a good place in the workplace, hence the change. I was not in a good place in my marriage, so relationship-wise, and I was not in a good place physically. As you can imagine, 264 pounds. I was on all kinds of different medications and things. Like I was heading towards, an early visit with the undertaker. So anyhow, going around and then making the changes, I took a change in the career, as I say, career. Then I made a change in the relationship. Me and my wife, our ex-wife now, we went our separate ways. Then I started taking care of myself physically. And then I ran into three other areas, which was my emotional health that I still had to work on, and well-being. I decided to start my business, which is coaching and storytelling, and helping other people make positive changes in their lives, because I had gone through that as well. And the other big change was, let me just see, where was my other big change that I had listed down there? Business and relationships. So I had a lot of work to do still on relationships. That was new to me because I didn't really get a lot of exposure to relationships when I was younger. So we'll talk a little bit about that, parenting my mom and my dad and relationships there, and the relationships especially around them as well. So very quickly, I think to explain kind of the transition I went through is I think of a stool. So I think of a stool with 6 legs, and one of the legs is, my career. So the people in my profession, in my career, was one leg of the stool. My family. So when I think of a family, I think of a couple of parts. One is like my brother and my sister and those relationships, and my relationship with my mom and dad. That was kind of my family. My cousins, that's kind of like part of my family. That's one leg on the stool. Another leg on the stool is my children, my beautiful children, Shane and Emily. So they were a separate leg on the stool. There's myself. So me, myself, and I like to call it. So taking care of myself and everything around that, my own personal growth and development. As I was saying, there wasn't a whole lot of personal growth and development going on when I was 45 and I'd hit rock bottom. The other the other stool is, at that point in time, husband. So the relationship with your life partner, I prefer soulmate, whatever you want to call it, that relationship. So that leg on the stool. And then the last one was friends as well. So the relationships that you have with your friends. For me, my stool over the years, Some of the legs weren't even very well developed on the relationship side, relationships with women, relationships with friends. That wasn't very developed. And the other ones started to crack. They started to wear down. They started to break. And before I knew it, 5 of those legs were broken. They were, so you could imagine how I hit rock bottom. Um, I think the common theme across those, it was with people in relationships. So that was the area that I had, including my relationship with myself, the total isolation for my kids. So that's one theme that went through these 10 years, was everything around people and relationships. And the other theme was my children. My 2 beautiful children were always there for me. Like, even when I hit rock bottom, I was still spending my time with my kids. As a matter of fact, one of the triggers for me to make a change in my life was, I was looking in the mirror one day. I said, you know what, you are going to die of a heart attack. You can imagine 264 pounds. It's like I'm pregnant. I've had a belly. It's like I'm 8 months pregnant. It's like you can imagine, and all the meds and the whole bit. Heart attacks in the family. So for me, I looked at mirror, I said, you're going to die. You're going to leave your kids without a father. And right there, that's when I decided, you know what, it's time to make a change. And while I was looking, I said, you know what, I'm tired of looking at you in the mirror and, and how miserable you look. So really, my kids really were a catalyst for me to start making the change. And they've been with me the whole time as well in the supporting. Even in the times I remember when I'd go down in my man cave and watch movies, which is a way for me to suppress my feelings. I was suppressing my feelings and emotions. That was my strategy for not having to deal with them. So a good way was watching movies. Another good way was self-medication, so taking alcohol, hanging out by myself. And I'd go down the man cave and my son would come down with me. He'd sit next to me. So I've got my son over there with me. And then my daughter would come in. She was really young at the time, so she didn't want to watch the movies and the whole bit, but she'd just come and she'd lay on me. So I'd have my daughter just laying on me there. And it just felt warm. It felt so warm having her there. Now, it wasn't as warm as it could feel because I was drinking, right? So I didn't feel her so much, but the warmth was still there. And I'd look over and my son's sitting there as well. So just having them in my life has just been so, so important, so incredibly important. And another kind of, so I call that was part of my gift. So my gift is my children. My gift were all those different points that got me to really start feeling the pain of hiding my emotions and, isolating. That pain was a gift and a reminder to get out there and connect with people. So I had a lot of these different gifts for which I'm very grateful for. So that's a little bit around the story. Now, for me, I want to be able to give back all that change and everything. I want to be able to give that back to people. So that's why I started my business about self-change management, helping other people make positive changes. So whether I'm helping them from a people perspective around coaching, if they're looking at making changes, or if they've got decisions, or if they're working on their personal or professional foundation, I'm helping them learn and grow. And the foundation is what allows us to make changes. So being able to do that. I had a very big gift as I was going through that, is just remembering my mother. My mother used to, she brought me up. So I was basically a man brought up by a woman. My mom was very loving and caring. I remember her parent effectiveness training courses and self-help books, all that stuff that she was sharing with me that kind of went in one ear and out the other, which is what happens when you're younger. and anyhow, a guy, I'll speak for myself. So a lot of that, as I was going through my change and stopping and reflecting, a lot of this was coming out. It's like my mom passed away from cancer around 11 years ago, and she was my best friend as well. It's like all these things that she had said to me is all coming out, and it was helping me to be able to take care of myself and to take care of my kids. It was a gift that she gave. My brother's a stay-at-home dad. My sister, she has a role in there where she's one of the key breadwinners. Just an incredible parent as well. Just loving and caring parents. She brought up these loving and caring, independent kids. And I'm proud to say, and again, for me, my biggest role, that one part of the stool, the one leg that stayed there, is for me, my biggest accomplishment in my life was my role as my father. It outweighs everything else. Nothing compares to that. To me, it's my children are my biggest gift. And being there to help support them has been one of the things I'm the most proud of. So hopefully I'm running out of my time right here. I'm at my 10 minutes. hopefully I'm going to be able to share some of those stories and share some of those things that I was able to, learn and apply myself, things that came from my mom. I've actually, I'll just add one more minute on here. I've actually decided to write another book. So it's called Parenting Tips from a Dude. So I was a single parent, well, a single co-parent for about 8 years, raising my kids without having my mother, or not really having a lot of contact with their mother during a big part of it as well. So my A to Z, I'm hoping to share just some of the tips and some of the things that I was able to leverage and use, so that other parents can use them as well, whether they're a couple, whether it's other men who are by themselves in the same position, or women as well. I'm going to source my information. So A to Z, these are tips from A to Z. I'm going to source my information from my own experiences, so my trials and tribulations. Some of the memories of my mom and what she actually shared with me as well, from being just a person, and the parenting and the whole bit, all the books. I still have some of her self-help books that she was trying to force me to read, almost, well, inspire me to read those years that I didn't. That luckily I've got a few of them in my library, and I bought the others. I want to crowdsource with other parents as well to get similar tips, or get their ideas on some of these tips, similar tips. And also I want to get some input from my own daughter and my son. So from Emily and Shane, my daughter and son, and from some of their friends as well. So that's my new project that I'm going to hope, as well, helps me become a better parent, that it helps rub off on my children so that they can be better parents later on, and so that other people as well. So that's a little bit about my story and my transformation, where I'm at. I look forward to discussing it more with you, I think tomorrow morning, Sherry. Thank you. And I really appreciate you allowing me the platform to share that with others. Bye.